Well, there's plenty to talk about as far as the news of the day is concerned, and who better. But now we have the foreign editor at The Australian who's joining me, Greg Sheridan. And Greg, welcome to the program. Let's start with the big news from across the ditch. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern's shock resignation. Some say a rat leaving a sinking ship, but either way, there's an election coming in October. She may well be the darling of the left around the world, but back at home she was facing a set of dire polls. In fact, Greg, here's a little bit of what Jacinda Ardern was telling New Zealanders this morning about why she decided to step down.
As much as I have taken great joy in this job, I would be giving a disservice to this country and to the Labour Party if I continued knowing that I just don't have enough in the tank for another 4 years.
Well, Greg, I get it. Government is hard, but what do you think? Not enough in the tank? Or is it just the realisation that she was going to go down in history with a devastating defeat not too far off on the cards?
Well, Gary, it's great to be with you. I have to say, I think she was one of the worst prime ministers I've ever witnessed anywhere in the world. She was the absolute triumph of celebrity over substance. On every measure of substance, she was a dismal failure. All her economic instincts were bad. All her strategic instincts were bad. Her government was a timid mouse in relation to China. She was going to build 100,000 houses. She built fewer than 1,000. She was going to, reform the world on climate change and emissions. New Zealand's emissions went up before COVID. But she coasted for a while on this celebrity. She was Queen Jacinda, the woke princess. She gave interviews barefoot, and she had a stay-at-home dad for a partner and all this stuff. And she was young and she was woke and all that. But in the end, the results for the New Zealand economy and the New Zealand society were terrible. And she is a mile behind in the polls, even though she's got a very timid, unresourced, fawning media within New Zealand. And finally, reality caught up to the reality TV star.
I mean, she'll get a damehood because that's what they do in New Zealand. All ex-prime ministers, women get damehoods and the others get knighthoods. But, I mean, apart from that, what next for Jacinda? I mean, obviously she's going to be star of Harry and Meghan's next sort of video or whatever. That's what they were suggesting. But deserved or not, she is so recognised around the world. It won't be the last we'll see of her.
Well, in this universe, fame is money. And she can monetize her fame in the United States and so on. But, a couple of years ago, the New York Times sent Maureen Dowd out to Australia to do respective profiles on Scott Morrison and Jacinda Ardern. They demonised Scott Morrison as the enemy of immigrants and a racist and all the rest. But Australia, in reality, takes miles more immigrants per head of population and miles more refugees than New Zealand does. And they lionised Jacinda Ardern purely on identity issues. She's a young woman who had a baby in office. All that's terrific. I'm not against young women having babies in offices. That's great. But you have to judge a political leader on substance. And her celebrity around the world has nothing at all to do with substance. So like Harry and Meghan, but I'm sure with much more grace, I mean, she's not as demented as Harry or Meghan, she can sail off and become an international celebrity. I mean, I'm sure there are 100 think tanks in the United States that would like to pay her a handsome stipend, and she can go on chat shows and talk about, the terrible struggle of being a female in New Zealand or something. Who knows? But, I just think she was an astonishingly hopeless Prime Minister who consistently talked unbelievable rubbish about almost everything. She said in the Pacific, it's not a contest between authoritarianism and democracy, the contest with China. Well, of course it is exactly that. And she said, we don't want the Pacific, we don't want to force the Pacific into a choice. We weren't forcing the Pacific into any choice. We were giving them an alternative to the Chinese dictatorship. But, she's going to have an affluent and much lauded future, and all the people who loved her, as Queen Jacinda will continue to love it. Harry and Meghan, of course, why would they be attracted to some dopey white male politician who actually welcomes immigrants into the country? They'd much rather be attracted to a young, attractive female who was elected on a policy of cutting immigration and with New Zealand barely taking, a tiny handful of refugees every year.